Have you ever felt like something was off in a relationship but couldn't put your finger on it? Perhaps you felt drained, confused, or emotionally overwhelmed. You may have questioned why you were so fatigued despite seemingly doing everything right. If any of this resonates with you, there's a possibility that you've experienced narcissistic abuse, or you know someone who has. The most chilling part of narcissistic abuse is the way it slowly erodes a person's self-worth, often leading them to neglect the very thing that could help them heal: self-care. What happens when a person who is struggling with narcissistic abuse starts to ignore their needs, and why does it often feel like they don't deserve care or attention? In this video, we'll uncover the dark truths behind why victims of narcissistic abuse tend to avoid self-care even when it's the very thing they need to recover. From gaslighting to emotional manipulation, and from a gradual loss of identity to the complete erosion of self-esteem, we will dive into these topics and much more. By the end of this video, you'll have a clearer understanding of the complex dynamics of narcissistic abuse and why self-care is often the first thing to be sacrificed. Stick with us and let's explore this deeply important issue together. Before we dive deeper, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to our channel, like this video, and share it with anyone who may need to hear this important message. Your support helps us continue bringing these important discussions to light. So let's get started. Narcissistic abuse can be one of the most insidious forms of emotional and psychological manipulation. Often, victims find themselves caught in a never-ending cycle of self-doubt, confusion, and shame. Narcissists, with their charm, manipulative tactics, and ability to make others feel insignificant, often lead their victims to question their own worth. One of the most distressing aspects of this type of abuse is that it wears down the victim's ability to care for themselves physically, emotionally, and mentally. At the beginning of a relationship, everything may seem perfect. The narcissist may come across as charming, charismatic, and considerate. However, as the relationship progresses, subtle forms of manipulation begin. Gaslighting, a tactic in which the narcissist twists the victim's perception of reality, is one of the most common strategies used. Slowly, the victim begins to question their own memory, sanity, and decisions. They start to feel as though they are not good enough, that they don't deserve love, or that their needs and wants are unimportant. This sense of worthlessness is key in understanding why victims of narcissistic abuse neglect self-care. When someone is made to feel like they are unworthy of love, attention, or care, they begin to internalize these messages. They may feel undeserving of time spent on themselves, or they may believe that focusing on their own needs is selfish or wrong. Narcissists, through their manipulation, effectively create an environment where self-care is viewed as unnecessary or even harmful. Over time, the emotional toll of narcissistic abuse begins to affect every aspect of a person's life. Victims may become so consumed with meeting the narcissist's demands and constantly trying to appease them that they lose sight of their own well-being. They might neglect their physical health, forget to eat, or stop exercising because the emotional exhaustion they experience leaves them with little energy for themselves. This neglect often extends to mental health as well. The constant emotional turmoil, confusion, and self-doubt make it difficult to prioritize self-care. One of the most troubling aspects of narcissistic abuse is that victims often feel isolated. Narcissists tend to isolate their victims from friends, family, and support networks, further making them believe that they are alone in their struggles. Without a support system to remind them that they deserve care and kindness, the victim's ability to care for themselves diminishes. They may start to believe that their needs don't matter and that no one would care anyway. This leads to a downward spiral, where self-neglect becomes a normalized part of their daily existence. Moreover, narcissistic abuse often involves a lack of empathy from the abuser. Narcissists are incapable of providing the emotional support that a victim might need to heal. In fact, the narcissist may actively dismiss or belittle any attempts at self-care. For example, a victim who tries to focus on their own mental health might be met with criticism or ridicule. This dismissive behavior reinforces the victim's belief that taking care of themselves is unimportant or even shameful. Additionally, victims of narcissistic abuse often struggle with extreme emotional fatigue. The constant need to walk on eggshells, monitor the narcissist's behavior, and manage the emotional ups and downs leaves little room for self-care. The emotional exhaustion can be so overwhelming that even basic self-care activities like taking a relaxing bath, enjoying a hobby, or even getting enough sleep can seem like insurmountable tasks. Over time, this neglect can lead to long-term consequences. Victims may experience physical health problems due to neglecting their body, such as weight loss, weight gain, or chronic illness. Mentally, they may suffer from depression, anxiety, and even post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. The lack of self-care also keeps the victim trapped in the toxic cycle of the abusive relationship, as they don't have the energy or motivation to break free. The most heartbreaking part of narcissistic abuse is that victims often don't recognize what is happening to them. They may think that their inability to care for themselves is just a personal failing, not realizing that they are caught in the grip of emotional and psychological manipulation. This confusion only worsens their situation, making them feel even more isolated and helpless. Self-care isn't just about pampering oneself. It's about recognizing one's worth and prioritizing mental, emotional, and physical health. However, in the context of narcissistic abuse, self-care becomes an act of rebellion against the toxic dynamics that the narcissist has created. For victims, learning how to practice self-care can be a profound and difficult journey, but it is essential for their recovery. Breaking the cycle of self-neglect and reestablishing a sense of self-worth takes time, but it is possible. Victims of narcissistic abuse must first acknowledge that they have been manipulated, that their needs are valid, and that they deserve to take care of themselves. Rebuilding a healthy relationship with oneself requires patience, self-compassion, and sometimes professional help, such as therapy or support groups. It is also important to remember that healing is a process. Victims should never blame themselves for the abuse they endured or for the difficulties they face in prioritizing self-care. Narcissistic abuse is a form of psychological warfare that can leave deep scars. However, with the right tools and support, it is possible to reclaim one's life and health. If you are someone who has experienced narcissistic abuse, or if you know someone who is currently in an abusive relationship, it's crucial to understand the importance of self-care in the healing process. Whether it's seeking therapy, setting boundaries, or simply taking a moment to breathe, small steps can make a big difference. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you found this information helpful, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and share it with others who might need to hear this. If you have any questions or thoughts, feel free to comment below. We'd love to hear from you. Remember, you are worthy of love, care, and attention, and you don't have to go through this alone. Stay strong and take care of yourself.